My name is Ben Salisbury. I'm currently a group head working for EDF Energy on feed water and cooling water systems for our existing nuclear fleet. I just want to check that I'm talking to the right audience before I get underway on this. So just a show of hands, who in here is supportive of nuclear power and the nuclear industry? Excellent. Talking to the right people then, that's a good thing. I'm going to come slightly away from the technical side of things tonight. I'm going to talk something that's very close to my heart and something I believe in. And as Chris said, the title of it is Why Don't You Like Me? And it's what I see as nuclear power. And I'm talking about the industry here, what I see as our public image problem. And I think you'll agree that in these days, Facebook, 24/7 media communications, image is everything. Just ask Mr. Murdoch, ask any politician. It's an important factor and something we can't forget. One thing you'll see from my presentation today, all of the images I've used throughout my presentation are freely available on Google Images. These are the sort of things that people see when they type nuclear power into Google Images. These are the types of things that will pop up. So first of all, before we get into it, a bit of a chance to reminisce. Can anybody tell me that date, 17th of October, 1956, the relevance of that? No, Calder Hall, absolutely. Calder Hall, 17th of October 1956. Queen switches on the first commercial nuclear power station in Calder Hall.
Atomic, actually.
Atomic, I do apologise, you're absolutely right, and it says it in the quote. Well, not that quote, but the one after. So the Queen said, interesting there, she's talking about obviously the World War II, the use of nuclear power in the case of weapons, and now it's being harnessed for a good purpose. That's what it's seen as. But the quote I like is this one from Richard Butler, the Lord Privy Seal. So he says, maybe that after 1965, every power station being built will be an atomic power station. Wouldn't that have been nice, eh? Almost a year to the day after that, as we said up there, Windscale fire. And then, of course, we know the big headliners, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, all these sorts of things. And our images suffered. And I think it's fair to say as an industry, we can say our image has suffered. And we've almost gone with, in terms of how we portray ourselves, we went to ground a little bit that period. And we sort of said, we got to the point where I felt when I first came into the industry, first started with it, it was, we produce 25% of the country's power. You can't afford to get rid of us. And that was almost the way we were. We started off as a shining beacon, harnessing this power for the good. And we went to ground a little bit. And that's where I think the roots of what I'm talking about today comes from. So I'm going to throw a few statistics at you. Don't worry, I won't use them too much. I know everybody loves statistics. But public support for nuclear power. So I'm talking about a survey that was conducted by the Cardiff University Department of Psychology. This was done January to March 2011. So this was actually just before Fukushima. And they went through a number of people. The survey was about public perceptions of climate change and energy futures, and looking at the different types of energy and how people felt about them. So the question I'm going to ask you is, what percentage of people do you think asked in this survey gave a favourable or very favourable impression of nuclear power, that they were in support of it? What do we think? 31%. 31%? Over 50? 71, I like that. Optimism, optimism. 28, oh dear, we've gone the other way, we've gone the other way. I'd like to take 71, but unfortunately, 34%. No, this was around the country. This was coming out outside of Wales. They looked at it. No, absolutely, and I'll come on to that, but this was quite an interesting one, so John, I'll give it to you, closest without going over. But 34%, and there was a YouGov poll done about a year ago, 2010, that actually showed 34% of people in favour, and that was redone about a month ago, so following the Fukushima, it actually gone up. It was about 35% were in favour, which is interesting, I think, but this number concerns me. Working in the nuclear industry and being a supporter of the nuclear industry, this number concerns me. Because you can translate this into the base number of people that actually like nuclear power and will support it going forward, and it's not a great number. So I'll go on, last bit of statistics, I promise. Our response since those early days We've been given a lifeline, if you like, and that's been climate change. Because what have we done as an industry? We've repositioned ourselves. We've said we are the low-carbon producer of choice. We're clean, we're efficient, and we can be safe. And so we've come out and said climate change, this is good for us. We can change our image and we can reposition ourselves and put ourselves into a position where, again, we are the baseload producer of choice. So same survey, and last bit on here. So we're asked a percentage of respondents who are willing to accept nuclear power if it helps with climate change and if it helps with things like energy security, cost, etc. So what do we think the numbers are there? 50? Up 70? Any advance on that? No? No? John, I'm sure John's been cheating on this. 55, 56%. So it helps. Repositioning helps. It's put us into a slightly stronger position. It raises us in public opinion because we're saying, look, yes, there's risks involved with nuclear power, but we've got significant benefits here. We've got something in the environment that says we can be of use. We're becoming that shining beacon of hope that we once were when atomic power was first harnessed. But 55 and 56% still isn't a great number. And it comes from, initially, that base support we have of 34%. And it's a concern. I'll come to it again. It concerns me. I don't like it. And I think to understand why those numbers are low, we have to look at the issues. What is it that puts people off nuclear power? So we'll go through those a bit. Terrorism. It's been mentioned earlier. It's on everybody's minds. It has been since 9/11 and for some people before then. It's always going to be there. And we know we're safe. I'm confident to say that I don't believe there will ever be a terrorist attack on a nuclear facility, because that's not the way I think terrorism works these days. They go for softer targets. And because we do an awful lot of work to protect our nuclear facilities. But we don't tell people that. How much confidence do we give people in the fact that we protect our facilities in an excellent way and we can be proud of how we protect them? Nuclear weapons, how many people do you think still think that our commercial nuclear reactors have anything to do with nuclear proliferation and nuclear weapons? It's a bigger percentage than we'd like. Let's be honest, there's still people who think, my mother-in-law was one of them. She still thought, when she found out I worked in the nuclear industry, that it was something to do with nuclear weapons. And we've been so far from that for a long time. But it's a legacy issue that we have to shake. Waste, another one. We've talked about integrated waste management systems. Waste is always going to be with us. It's one of those issues that I feel a bit embarrassed about because I'm not entirely sure that as an industry, we have got a particularly good handle on it. You know, but why should we not be open and honest about that? Who's to say that the nuclear industry has the people within it to sort out the issue? But if we're open and honest and talk to people about it, we might find somebody who can help develop the issues. And if the public understands what the issues are, perhaps we'll get more support in terms of perhaps moving to the way France operate, looking at more recycling of fuel. Who's to say if we get 6, 8 new PWRs in the country, we won't have a drive to then go to recycling plants and move into MOX fuel and that sort of thing. But we need these open discussions. We need people to understand the issues associated with waste and what we do to help drive this. Radiation. People don't understand it. People are scared of it. It's silent. You can't see it. And it could kill you. Look at the coverage of Fukushima. It's almost pandemonium, you'd say, on parts there. It's crazy. And it's because people don't understand it. But how well do we control it? Most of our staff who work day in, day out alongside nuclear reactors probably get less dose than airline hostesses and pilots and so on. But people don't understand this. And do we do enough? That's the question we've got to ask. Do we do enough to educate people so that when they have reports on the television, when they have reports like that, it's not the nuclear industry that has to come out and say, no, they've got it slightly wrong here, look, this is what's going on. It's people themselves, the public, that understands and says, hang on a minute, I'm not so sure about that. And of course, the headline maker, safety. Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, all these things, we've used them ourselves. But what we don't communicate to the public is how we've improved from these events. And that's something that really annoys me as an industry, because we should be so proud of what we've done. the changes in technology, the changes in culture, human factors being one of those that was mentioned earlier. The way we've changed the very makeup of how we do things as an industry from these events is something to be proud of, and something that if the public knew more about, I think things like Fukushima, they'd know straight away, as soon as that occurs, what's the first thing we're going to do is look at absolutely everything we do and say, could it happen here? And we'll learn from it and we'll improve. But again, does the public understand that? And these issues, as I say, they concern me because coming back to this number, that really unsettles me. And I was surprised. I did think it was higher than that. And I've looked at a couple of surveys, lies, damn lies, and statistics, but I get the feeling that that is about right. And it does concern me. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to change. Repositioning has helped, but we need to do more. And the key thing, I think, is this, that at the moment we're very reactive to the environment. We almost allow things to happen to us. And we need to get away from that. We need to move to being proactive. And that's getting that base number of 34% to go up. And I believe it can. I think I saw similar polls, surveys from the US, and it's up around the 65, 66% in the US that support the use of nuclear power, which is quite incredible, and that would make me feel a lot more comfortable working in the nuclear industry. And the key things I've got there is creating and keeping this positive reputation and image. And that's education and that's communication. And I'll talk about those a lot. And you have to ask, does it matter? And I say, well, yes, it does. I think that showed us. Switzerland's still debating it. Germany, it's not going to happen there. Italy may have been a bit of a up yours to Mr. Berlusconi, but probably underlying that, it's the concerns over Fukushima. It changed the game. And I think the fact that it was up in front of everybody's minds and causing problems, that combined with the 34 does make me uncomfortable. And that's where I think we need to go to. We need to go to change. We need to change from this just repositioning ourselves. We need to go on the offensive, if you like. We need to be proactive, and we need to educate and communicate people. And the key things I'm talking about, politicians. They get a bad rap. We've had some good support from politicians for the nuclear industry, but are we in danger of losing a bit of credibility because of that? Are the politicians properly informed about what nuclear power is, how safe it is, what it can do? The media is a huge influence, a huge factor these days. They can certainly make or break football players and their own newspapers, but they will make and break the industry as well. We can't keep quiet anymore. Fukushima was a difficult one. As an industry, I think we were particularly quiet. And people have said back to me, well, we didn't have the information, we didn't have this, and we didn't have that. That may be true. But ultimately, that 34% was a problem there because we didn't have enough people who were educated about what nuclear power is and about what we do as an industry to keep people safe that led to the issues around that media communication. So we need to control those stories. And the key to both of those above it is the public. We need to keep educating them. We need to keep talking to them openly and honestly, not just about the good things we do, but about the issues we have and how we're working to resolve those. Because if we have the public and they understand the issues, they'll control what the media and what the politicians say. So my point is, and sorry, a little bit preachy, less of a talk, but as I say, this is something that's really dear to me. We have to change. We've got to communicate more with people. We have to be more open. After 9/11, one of the first things we did, all of the facilities in British Energy, as it was then, closed all of our visitors' centres. Terrible, in my opinion, a terrible reactionary mistake. You go to France, I've been to France, been to their facilities, you go to the visitor centres, they love having people to visit. They're so proud of what they do and how they do it. And that's where we need to get to. We need to be open and talk. And we've got to educate. Let's take away these fears by showing them what we do, showing them how safe we are, how thoroughly we look at things and think about them, and how we control them. Or potentially we don't have to. As an industry, we can say we've repositioned, because in the words of a man I like, W. Edwards Deming, he said it's not necessary to change, because ultimately survival isn't mandatory. And that's all I've got. Thank you very much.